Welcome to the Evident Proof demo. My name is Matt Roden. I'm the CTO of Evident. I run demos twice weekly on a Tuesday at 10 a.m. and a Thursday at 4 p.m. London time. The purpose of these demos is really just to give everyone a brief introduction into what Evident Proof is, how the platform works, how you integrate into the platform and utilize the service. So what is Evident Proof? Evident Proof is a platform for storing immutable proof of evidence. What does all that mean? So if you're an organization or an individual and you have data that you need to store immutably to prove the integrity of that data and the immutability of that data further down the line, so you need to show that it's not been tampered with, not been hacked, not been changed, you can use the Evident Proof service to submit that data to us and have us use blockchain technology to store distributed immutable proof of that data in the form of a proof seal, which doesn't reveal your source data to anyone, but does put a hash of that data on a distributed blockchain network, which can be used via our service to prove beyond doubt to a court of law further down the line, or in a litigation scenario or an audit compliance scenario, that that data has not been changed, it's not been tampered with. So you can present your original data and show that it was indeed stored at that time from that location in the format you said it was, and that all the data fields match what you're presenting. And we prove that by way of something called a proof certificate, which effectively gives you all the information you need to be able to prove that that data was stored on millions of computers in a distributed fashion on the blockchain. So how does one utilize this service? Well, it's a web service based platform. So you generate an API key via our platform. You can see here I'm showing you the dashboard. And then once you have your API key, you can write some code in your line of business application or your app or your website or your desktop software, which will post data to our service, and then we store that data immutably. So we have many real clients using the platform. One of those is the largest supplier of taxi licensing solutions to UK local government. That company effectively supplies the software and the consulting and the solution to local government for the checks and balances and the issuing of a taxi license in the UK. So why would it be important to store that data immutably? It's just a taxi license. Well, an article came out in The Guardian earlier this year saying that 150,000 taxi licenses in the UK had been issued to drivers with drink driving bans, criminal convictions, you name it, they had it. And then the burden falls on the supplier of the solution and the local government to prove that the data they had in their database had not been tampered with, had not been changed, and thus demonstrate that either, yes, these checks and balances were done and here's where the process fell down, or no, they weren't, and let's trace back to see who was responsible for that. And so by using the Evident Proof service, they have a sort of parallel immutable proof of the data in their line of business application in their database, which they can present to relevant parties in the inevitable litigation or audit compliance scenario. So we can't show you their large line of business application. It is their confidential property, but we can show you a sort of trimmed down version that we've knocked together that demonstrates creating a taxi license and demonstrates a service having been integrated into Evident Proof. And so if I switch to this tab here, you'll see our representation of what a taxi licensing solution looks like, and we're going to go and create a taxi license and go through this process. So think of something I haven't used before. Let's do my name, Matt Test. And we're going to say that there's a license active. We're going to say we've performed a criminal record check here with a checkbox. Of course, this isn't how you evidence a criminal record check. You would attach PDF documents from, say, a local authority or a police force, and evident proof can take any kind of data as evidence. And so that's what would be submitted through. Driving license number, and we're going to say again identity check performed, which would be evidenced in some way, and we'll say they don't have any driving offences so that we're allowed to create this license, and we're in. So you can see at the bottom we have Matt test. That's what I just made. And what's happened in the background is this form data has been submitted to the evident proof service, and we can switch back to evident proof now, and it's been processed and a proof seal has been created. And if we go into this record, this should be, here we go, Matt test, you can see there. Now, let me describe this data that you're seeing in front of you. So we have a dispatch. What is a dispatch? Well, it's just an API call into the service. It's a dispatch of evidence records effectively into the evident proof service. So evidence, which you'll see down here, is a fixed schema that we expect data to be presented to us in, and it's this fixed schema which ensures that we can always correlate between evidence and a proof seal stored on the blockchain. You can see here a where and a when. So we have effectively the who, what, where, why, when is the process we go through on this data. So who isn't presented on the screen, but it's effectively the user ID. The what is the data, and we'll go into that in a sec. And the where and the when is a timestamp, and where can be an IP address or a geolocation, effectively stating where that data came from. Now, let's talk through the structure of evidence. So you can see a PSU cross-reference. What is that? So that is a key that relates back to some data in your database or line of business application, and this really could be a single key or a compound key or a serial number or an ID of a person or asset or an object. This is whatever you need to be able to correlate this data back to your source data in your system. Then you can see we have a key and a value. So those of you in the software development community will be very familiar with this way of storing evidence. And actually, in this scenario, we're just storing a single key value. In fact, a dispatch can store many pieces of evidence. So perhaps it's many documents or many forms. And so you can see here we have a JSON representation of that form data. This could be a single field, it can be a single form, it can be multiple forms, or it can be the works of Shakespeare. We really don't care as long as we get to the proof seal. So what is this? This is a hash of all of this data effectively and more. And what this proof seal is used for is really a checksum, a verification of your data. So none of your data is actually revealed within this seal, but it does prove your data. So and thus we have proof of evidence, evident proof. So then we have a receipt. A receipt is returned to you via the API call when you submit the data. Effectively, a receipt is your method of saying this data has been immutably stored on the evident proof blockchain. So I have immutable proof of this bit of data, and here's how I navigate back to that data on the evident proof platform. So that's your receipt. So then we've got that data stored. We're a year down the line and we need a proof certificate. So you can either request a proof certificate via the API or via the user interface here. What is a proof certificate? So it is literally a document and a collection of data which allows you to prove to a court of law or a litigation scenario the data was stored on the blockchain, and give some structure of data which allows someone to prove that transaction on the blockchain. So we're going to generate a proof certificate. What this has done is gone off to the blockchain, check the data, check the seal, and check that it matches our source data. And we can go and look at that certificate now. You'll see everything here looks very familiar. The only thing we're really adding here is we're saying that there's a transaction ID, and here's what it is. This is really the crux of this proof certificate to be able to prove this taxi licensing data. Proof certificates are able to include more data or less data and be formatted to your organization's proof requirements, output into a PDF or a spreadsheet, and we consult with you as an organization to work out what proof you need to present in your particular proof scenarios. So that is the Evident Proof demo. Any questions you have, reach out on Telegram to myself or any of the Evident Proof team, and I will see you on Thursday at 4 p.m.